Yo, what's going on, guys? My name's omgurheadsgone, and welcome to my first episode of Call of Duty Ghosts tips and tricks. So in this series, what I plan to do is give you guys the best tips I can and the things that I learn as I go along and play the game, and hopefully in the end I can make you guys better Call of Duty Ghost players. So let's get started. My first and probably most important tip that I can give you guys is to make sure you pick a weapon that you are comfortable with. Now, it all depends on what kind of player you are. There are different kinds of players I've found. There are people that really like to play extra rushy, and in scenarios like that, if you're a player that always wants to be right in the action, you're going to want to consider a submachine gun. But at the same time, it also depends on the map you're playing. So there are lots of things you have to take into consideration. On a larger map, you might want to make sure you use an assault rifle, because you can still play the role of a running and gunning player even if you are using an assault rifle. It doesn't limit you, but what you want to do is make sure that you have classes kind of set up for all sorts of different maps, so that for example, if you're playing one of the larger maps like Whiteout, you might want to have a long range assault rifle or even a sniper class. And then if you're playing a smaller map like free-for-all, you might want to have a submachine gun in that scenario. But the most important thing, guys, is to not necessarily follow one specific gun that somebody tells you to use, but try them all out and find a gun that you really like. One gun I highly recommend is the MSBS, which I am using in this video right now. And you'll see why I recommend it, hopefully, with the gameplay just from this video alone. It is a 3-round burst gun, so it only takes 3 shots to kill, and because it's a 3-round burst, you get a kill every single time you actually get a direct shot on somebody. So it means that you're going to be getting a lot of kills really quickly and easily, and it's actually a bit overpowered in that kind of aspect, but I'm sure eventually Call of Duty Ghost or Infinity Ward, whoever is behind Call of Duty Ghost, is going to give it a patch and nerf it a bit, which I don't think anybody should really complain too much about, because it's kind of ridiculous when you can kill people. Look how quick that kill was there. When you can kill people that quickly, it just kind of leaves the game a little bit unbalanced. But anyways, let's move on, guys, to my next tip, which is keeping to the outskirts of the map you are playing. Guys, this is a really important tip because it allows you to enter any gunfight scenario with an advantage, so as to speak, because generally speaking, the person that you're going to be getting in that gunfight with is always going to be in front of you, and they're not going to catch you from behind. And look how clueless that guy was there in the corner. I think he was AFK or something. And look how quick I died there. This is what I mean by you die really quick in this game. But anyways, like I said, guys, if you're sticking to the outside of the map, you're never going to end up in a gunfight where you're getting killed from behind or from the side. If you always have your back to the outskirt of the map, then you're always going to have the action going on in front of you, and it gives you the opportunity to see the opponent first and to kind of sneak up on people if you're sticking along the sides and things like that. So it's going to help you guys play better and hopefully get a better score. But let's move on to my next tip, tip number 3. Keep an eye on your radar, guys. The radar is there to give you very valuable information. One thing that you can find out from the radar is where the enemy team is spawning by just checking out where your own team is. Generally speaking, the algorithm for spawning in Call of Duty has always been spawn where the other team isn't. So it's not too dominant in a game like Domination, where there are actual flags you capture and those kind of determine spawn points, but it's more prevalent in other game modes, especially ones like Team Deathmatch or Cranked, where the game is just trying to spawn the enemy away from where your current teammates are. So always keep an eye on the map. In Domination, just look at what flags they have, but in other game modes like TDM and Cranked, like I mentioned, just look on the map and look where your team isn't, and generally speaking, that's where the other team is going to be spawning. And the radar isn't only just useful for figuring out spawns, but it's also really good to just see where the other team is if they don't have a suppressed weapon, guys, because a lot of people actually don't use suppressed weapons, guys. So there's always going to be enemy dots appearing on the map, and that's going to give you an idea of where to go to find the enemy team, and of course going to pinpoint actual specific locations of enemies at the current time. And a lot of people right now are also using satcoms, so that alone is going to give you a UAV-like effect, and you'll just be able to see any enemy that isn't using off the grid on the radar, and that should help you out tremendously in your gameplay. So let's move on to tip 4, guys. Find a sensitivity that works for you. Don't just stick to using the default sensitivity that the game starts you off with. What you want to do is play around with your sensitivity and find what helps you keep more accurate on targets and in general helps you play better. Now, I personally actually prefer a low sensitivity in Call of Duty Ghost. I believe there are now 20 sensitivity options, which means that you have a really large choice in terms of what sensitivity that you can find and use, so you can really play around with different sensitivities and find what works for you. Like I said, I personally like to use a low sensitivity. I believe I'm using 2 or 3 right now on Call of Duty Ghost, and I was using, I think, 2 or 3 on, I think I was using 3 on Black Ops 2. And my reasoning for this lower sensitivity, although it can be detrimental to your ability to actually turn around on a person if somebody's shooting at you from behind, it helps you so much, guys, when it comes to staying on target, especially at long range. When I am using a 3-round burst, I want to get my bullets on target. That's why a red dot is a really important attachment to use, but it's really the low sensitivity that helps me really follow a target if they are at any decent range, guys. So that's why I personally recommend a lower sensitivity, and it's actually the reason that a lot of professional Call of Duty players play on such low sensitivity, guys. So play around with your sensitivity, but don't take my recommendation of a low sensitivity as a set in stone thing to help you play better, guys. It's all about personal preference. So if you actually find a higher sensitivity works for you, stick to it, because another important thing to keep in mind when it comes to sensitivity is just to keep constant with the sensitivity that you use. So be consistent, and I find that if you stick to a similar sensitivity at all times, you're going to get good with that sensitivity no matter what. So let's move on to tip number 5, guys. My final tip for this video is to use a red dot attachment on pretty much any gun you use, apart from the sniper rifles, of course, and maybe shotguns, as you really don't need that precision aiming when it comes to a weapon like a shotgun. And there are a couple of exceptions to this. Some machine guns, some submachine guns might not actually need a red dot because they already have a good enough crosshair just for any short range engagements that you're going to be using the weapon for. But basically, for every assault rifle, guys, you're going to want to be using the red dot attachment, because this really helps tremendously with keeping on target and being able to see your full target, and it will give you that precision that you need for picking people off that are behind head glitches and things like that. So I highly recommend you use a red dot sight, and it should really help you guys with your aiming. So that's gonna wrap up this episode of Call of Duty Ghost tips and tricks. If this video helped you guys out, please remember to comment down below, like the video, and maybe even subscribe if you are new to my channel. Otherwise, I hope you guys all have a really great day. See you guys later.
Mission accomplished. A good day's work.